You were Deputy Prime Minister briefly. It was a tumultuous year generally for Moldovan politics. The long-serving President Vladimir Voronin, a socialist, was succeeded by 3 acting presidents before you got a regularly elected president. But as part of this turmoil, pressure was put on you to support him, whereas you would preferably have stood for president yourself at this point. What brought about your downfall?
Very quickly, in 2003, Kremlin, Russian Federation, tried to impose a so-called federalization solution for Transnistrian conflict. In Chisinau came Mr. Dmitry Kozak, who used to be deputy chairman or deputy chief of Russian presidential administration. They tried to legalize the Russian military presence for 25 years, and in that moment we rejected this project. Why and how? First of all, our presence on the street.
Which goes back to 2001, in fact, because at that point the communists had a supermajority, two-thirds majority, and yet they still didn't manage, and we'll be talking about the territorial angle in a moment, Transnistria, the eastern sliver of your country, but they still didn't manage, despite their absolute supermajority, two-thirds, to bring about the communist will.
Was clever enough to understand that his electoral platform, which was suggested by Moscow,
he was a communist.
Doesn't work. He was a communist, but he understood after a short period of time, when he became for the first time president in 2001, that he cannot impose 2 state languages. It means 1 state language, Russian, really, but formally 2.
We should explain why, because in this kind of asymmetric situation, everybody is forced to speak Russian, because the Russian speakers will say, I don't speak Romanian.
Exactly, all Soviet story. And the second point of his political platform suggested by Moscow was federalization, and the third, the legalization of Russian military presence.
And again, for people used to Belgian or American ideas of federalism or federalization, we should explain what that means. It would have meant, although they didn't put this in the platform, it would have meant the cancellation of your constitution and the dissolution of all your state bodies, the presidency and the parliament.
No, the dissolution officially of the state. You have to understand that the first sentence, the key sentence in this so-called Kremlin version of Transnistrian problem, of solution for Transnistrian problem, which is named now Kozak Memorandum or Memorandum, yeah. Federative Republic of Moldova is the official legal successor of former Republic of Moldova. And I asked him directly, who intended to kill my country? You? Oh, sorry guy, I will kill you. Why you are coming to my country to say me that you are here to dissolve my country?
The Kremlin had sent him with a drafted text.
You have to check it on internet. Officially, he came here and his plan was to dissolve Republic of Moldova. And on this no man's land, they tried to organize a new country with new constitution, with new form of governance, with so-called asymmetrical federation, and the delegation from Tiraspol, from separatist region, from Transnistria, which has 18 or 20 mandates in national parliament. We have totally 101 members of parliament.
So they would have had 1/5 of the seats?
Yeah, and they will have the right to make veto on internal and external policy of my country.
So a blocking minority of 1/5.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And be ready to receive this official information, which was part of this official Russian plan to solve Transnistrian problem. Every single high official from new country, Federative Republic of Moldova, must have, in mandatory manner, first deputy from Transnistrian region. What it means? what kind of asymmetrical federation. And I said to Mr. Dmitry Kozak, we had an official meeting in our parliament, 3 party leaders and the leaders of our parliamentarian groups.
And you had all been summoned, not that they had the power to do it, but they had called you and said you are now summoned to meet the Kremlin's personal representative, Mr. Kozak, who has flown in secretly.
Yeah. And it was very funny to see how he tried to explain his position, his intention. I said to him, where are you from? I asked him, I am from Russia. And why you are here? He said, because I am an advisor. Listen carefully. I am an advisor of your president. Next question. Do you have Moldovan citizenship? No. But how you could be an advisor of my president, of my country? You can give to him some advices, maybe not so good, maybe wrong, maybe dangerous for our national interest. Another question. You are special envoy of Russian president. Congratulations. And in that period of time, during 1 week, we organized huge, enormous street protests during the last week of November 2003.
And this wasn't the first time, because from the 9th of January to the 29th of April the previous year, 2002, you had people continuously on the street when a previous version of this federal agenda had come out.
No, it was coming back to 2002. We started our protest at 9 January and we finished at 29 of April. It was the longest anti-governmental protest in whole ex-communist area. In that period of time, we were able to promote the adoption of 2 resolutions of European Parliament and 2 resolutions of Parliamentarian Assembly of Council of Europe. It was our fight, our merit, yeah?
But back to November 2003, Kozak is here as Putin's man. He has brought with him a text that says Moldova will cease to exist. The Kremlin put out a statement at the time saying Putin will be in town tomorrow to welcome this new fact.
To participate in official signing between our official president Vladimir Voronin in that period and self-proclaimed separatist so-called president Igor Smirnov. And during this week it was very tension situation.
So there you are with the other 2 leaders of the parliamentary parties, and you are saying, what right do you have to impose this on us?
No, it was very funny because we discovered this plan thanks to separatist news press agencies. Why? Because separatists had no interest to legalize their region because it is a black hole of Europe.
Arms smuggling.
Yeah, not only arms, everything. And Odessa, Transnistria, Ukraine, Moldova, Romania, it's very interesting way of making money, yeah, trans-border criminal networks.
So they leaked this to the press?
And we were shocked. And in that moment, Mr. Kozak was determined to announce officially his presence in Chisinau. Oh, hello, guys. And we discussed with him in parliament, and I said to him, you have to transmit to your boss that he offered to you, like in this movie, an impossible mission. You compromised your mission. You look at this street. They are our followers. He was so nervous because it was funny because in that period of time, the ambassador of Russian Federation here knew me very well. He was a very clever person, diplomat. His name was Vice Admiral Zubakov. And when I confronted Mr. Dmitry Kozak, he tried to stop to laugh like this. Mr. Kozak, you cannot smoke here. We are not smoking in parliament. Excuse me. To obtain this psychological superiority, I had to be a little bit more aggressive initially. And anyhow, who finally decided to not sign? Our president, communist president, Mr. Voronin.
Who would have normally very much welcomed it that As a result of this imposed federalization, the embarrassment for Russia would have gone away.
It was late night when he called officially Putin and said to him, Vladimir Vladimirovich, I'm so sorry, but I cannot sign it. What do you say? I cannot sign it. But you promised me. Yes, but your envoy introduced some provisions which are against our constitution. I cannot break out of our constitution.
So Kozak got the blame.
Yeah, in accordance with our constitution, we are a neutral country, and nobody can stay here military.
Because the background to this was 4 years previously, 1999, Russia had signed an OSCE document, the Istanbul document,
Exactly.
undertaking that it would withdraw its bases from your country and from Georgia, which was in a similar position. Time ticked on until it became an embarrassment. Every year, Russia said we're not quite ready to withdraw from our bases in Georgia and Moldova. Finally, it was make or break time.
Every single year during the month of November or December, early December, it organized the so-called OSCE summit, and Russia tried to avoid a very embarrassing position in 2003 because this summit was prepared for
the 1st and 2nd of December
in Maastricht that year. Before it, 1 year before, they promised in Portugal that it is enough 1 year to solve this problem.
That was the summit at Castelo Branco. And then they said next year at Maastricht, December 2003, we will definitively undertake to withdraw our bases.
Yeah.
And to avoid that, Kozak was sent for a last-minute stitch-up.
Yeah. He tried to organize, Kremlin tries to organize a so-called diplomatic blitzkrieg and to present to Western partners a fait accompli. We won because Moldovans and Transnistrians agreed to be a federation.
Part of that deal, there were 25-year rolling mandates. If Moldova didn't elect, you would continue to have bases.
More than that, the intention for dissolution of our constitution was so scandalous, was so incredibly arrogant on behalf of Russians. They didn't respect any kind of diplomatic juridical formalities.
A last-minute push.
And this coincidence of attitude, myself and my party and my colleagues from this street movement against Cossack memorandum, and this attitude, very patriotic attitude of Mr. Vladimir Voronin, predetermined our partnership 2 years later in parliament when he was elected for the second time. Communists obtained majority, but not so large in their parliament, and in accordance to our constitution before this changement operated by pro-European parties after that period, we elected our president in parliament, and to be elected once again, he needed some votes, maybe 6 or 7, I don't know exactly. And I came to him and I said to him, I will vote for you even if you are my opponent, because we have to protect our national interests, and I know that Russians and Americans are preparing a coup d'etat here in Moldova.
In fact, the same year, roughly 2006, George Bush's personal friend, when Bush was president, Bush Jr., Bruce Jackson. Bush's personal friend, Bruce Jackson, this is Bush Jr. during his presidency, 2006, told you that you were lined up to be the Moldovan Saakashvili. You would have been, if they had managed to get you from opposition to government, they would have installed you as America's puppet president.
We have to say that in that period, in 2005, when Voronin was elected for the second time, Americans and Europeans supported him.
A known communist.
He was communist because his attitude against Moscow expansionist intentions. And Saakashvili supported him. Ukrainian President Yushchenko supported him openly. Băsescu, Romanian president, was in favor and supported him during the electoral campaign. And me, as myself, as chief of my party and leader of my parliamentarian group, I thought that I have to support him because between us was pro-Russian bureaucratic party, former communists and former privatizator, yeah, corrupt guys, which were supported by Chubais and other liberals from Moscow around the Putin's administration. And we make this deal with Voronin, public deal. And after that, during 4 years, 2005 and 2009, I was killed by dominant media as a traitor. And I asked then, and I am asking now, whom I
betrayed?
Betrayed? Whom I betrayed? My national interests?
So
it's just a political deal in national interests, not in my self-interest or my party interest, not financial deal. It's about the rejection of post-Soviet syndrome of Russian Federation to dominate our small post-Soviet new countries.
So after the decade of the 2000s, when you narrowly missed out on leading your country, you became an increasingly persecuted dissident thinker instead. In 2017, you founded the annual Chisinau Forum, which has become distinctly anti-globalist. Before that, you were a translator of Alexander Dugin's material and many French dissident books as well into your native language, Romanian. In that time also, you say that you discovered the essence of Western corporatocracy and that it was no less arrogant and domineering than communist government. And you came out with this policy for yourself: I'd rather be a loser than a puppet.
Yeah, this is a problem in our region. To be a successful politician in our country, it means in this period of time to accept the subordination to Washington or to Moscow. And it is not for me. I am preferring to be a loser than to subordinate, to be a puppet of Western collective West or Russian administration, because Moldova has its vocation for independence and its national interests. And I am not so happy to see how the largest part of our politicians accept to be puppets of Russian interests in Moldova or Western interests of Moldova. Where is Moldovan political establishment in this situation?
So you have reached the conclusion that postmodernity is one goal with two methods, and the methods are represented by Moscow on the one hand and Brussels and Washington on the other. And during the decade of the 2010s, the Western part of the franchise decides to turn against you, as you oppose in particular the LGBT ideology.
Not only LGBT, it was maybe the key story in the scandal in public life of Moldova during several years, and I was a key person in these public scandals.
And in fact, this country, Moldova, was the first in the world where the church decided to hold a day of family pride for heterosexuals to march.
It is true, but you know, initially when I started my political activity, I knew nothing about economic colonialism. I didn't know about corporatocracy. I didn't know how functions global financial system, what it means to colonize mentally and after that politically and economically ex-communist area. And when I discovered, thanks to my personal political experience and thanks to my preoccupation with books, I am usually reading in four languages: English, French, Russian, and Romanian. And I tried to understand why Moldova is so poor country, why Moldova is a successful country. Usually, the official narrative is interpreting this situation like this: because of corruption of politicians. But it is not true. Corruption doesn't change the level of underdevelopment of my country. it's about the colonial legislation which was imposed by collective West, IMF, World Bank, WTO,
From 1995.
World Trade Organization, and they constrained us. They imposed a mandatory politics with open borders, with so-called free trade, yeah, and it meant an economic colonization of my country and whole ex-communist area. When I discovered, stupid me, this so unpleasant situation that we became a new third world, I reacted and I published many articles and books, and I talked about this in parliament and everywhere, that we were so ignorant in this kind of domains, what it means international relations, what it means economic domination, what it means civilization domination, what it means the intention to reshape all nations, all collective identities. It was a new agenda for our society. And the tragedy is that the largest majority of talking heads in this country, politicians, so-called experts, angiocracy or mediocracy, or they don't know nothing about it. The ignorance is total. In Romania, we can call it the hypocrisy, the double standards. They are talking this kind of official narrative because they are paid for it, yeah, by Soros Foundation or other foundations and so on. In our case, it is just about mediocrity.
And in the period when you were an aficionado of Alexander Dugin, I understand that he told you that a certain group of people around him had set up Vladimir Putin, as he put it, to play the role of a strongman, and that he wasn't really in charge.
Alexander Dugin remains for me very important Russian intellectual. He has a huge and enormous academical contribution, many very serious books, geopolitics, sociology, and so on. And I translated 4 books and many articles of Alexander Dugin. In that period of time, 10 years ago and a little bit more, maybe, some of his team told me that Putin is not so strong, but they created political analysts and commentators and journalists. They built this image of Putin of brave and strong man and statesman and the menace for Western countries and so on. And in fact, Putin is not so strong, but their impression was that they convinced Putin to believe in his dream, yeah, and to become a strong statesman. Now I am seeing that it was a mistake, because Putin is a little guy Putin is a little guy who is controlled by his entourage, his oligarchs, Russians or not necessarily Russians, who are based in Russia and who are controlling the great business in Russia and who in fact colonized Russia. But in that period of time, Dugin's team thought that they can reinvent Putin and make him very strong fighter for national interests of Russia.
Some of our viewers will have read Alex Kreiner's suppressed book, The Grand Deception, which is about what he correctly calls the Bill Browder hoax, when Bill Browder, the hedge fund man, claimed that he had heroically intervened when Mikhail Khodorkovsky began to be allegedly persecuted by the Putin clique for no reason. Kreiner found that Khodorkovsky had been involved in some very questionable dealings.
Yeah.
But you contend that from the American side, George H.W. Bush's personal crony, Bruce Jackson, your former friend, former mentor, you had found that there were other plans for Khodorkovsky.
It was very funny. When Khodorkovsky, this real criminal and very important mafia guy who killed many people and who tried to, but he wasn't alone. He represented in that period of time a syndicate and with links with Rothschild clan and with some American extensions, yeah, mainly among Republicans. And Bruce Jackson was very friendly with myself, and he said, I came to Washington by coincidence when was arrested Mr. Khodorkovsky.
2006, at a time when the McCain faction, the Richard Perle faction of the Republicans, we will be able to impose our will on the whole Soviet world.
McCain published an article in one very important newspaper, I don't know exactly, Washington Post maybe, or Wall Street Journal, against Putin, and he said after Khodorkovsky was arrested that it is the great spoliation or expropriation of Jewish people after the Hitler's experience. Okay, but Bruce said me, you have to know, Iurie, it was a discreet discussion. I apologize, Bruce, but
Bush Jr. had had 2 terms, and the plan was for McCain to continue and radicalize that legacy. And in this period of build-up, 2006.
Yeah. They tried to promote Khodorkovsky as head of state in Russia, as presidential candidate, who was planned to represent the occupational administration, the anti-Russian administration, colonial administration in Russian Federation. And Putin, not Putin, but not officially, directly Putin, his administration or prosecutor office arrested him. But in fact, it was a conflict between some factions of oligarchs in Russia. And Putin's oligarchs killed their concurrents and promoted Putin, that's it. Not killed directly, imprisoned or determined them to go abroad.
So you were told that the people who got rid of Khodorkovsky would never be forgiven by the American hawks, the neocons, because he had been lined up to be the next man in Russia.
Yeah, it is true. And now we are seeing this anti-war committee of Khodorkovsky, which is very ethnically colored, yeah.
And this is why they're always banging the drum in London for the Magnitsky Act and to broaden that to the EU and other countries.
Yeah, but at the same time I have to mention that for me Putin is not a hero, not as a real statesman, because he demonstrated his incapacity to build a new, strong economically and military Russia. And Russia, during this long mandate of Putin, initially was accepted by Europeans and collective West as economic appendix, and now Russia become a colony of China. That's it. Russia doesn't exist geopolitically anymore. They are not even a regional power because, for example, Turkish leadership, political leadership with Erdogan and Turkish state is much more stronger than Russia today. That's why Kremlin is so happy to subordinate themselves to China.
It certainly seems that in the Caucasus and the Middle East, Turkey is calling the shots in its relationship with Russia regarding oil politics, the choking of Armenia, the strategic oil and gas lines running through the region. But we have no time to discuss that today. Let's wrap up with some moments when you saw the veil of democracy dropped by the American side and the EU side. At the very same time, 2001, when, as described, you were resisting Russian attempts to recolonize you, starting from the Transnistrian separatist enclave, you found that the head of the OSCE mission in Moldova, so that's the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, and that's always by tradition a US diplomat heading the mission, the head at that time in 2001 tried to solve the Transnistrian conflict in the West's favour over your head. That was a man called William Hill, not the British bookmaker, but the American diplomat.
Yeah. An old diplomat who used to work in American embassy in Moscow during Soviet period.
Who spoke fluent Russian.
He is speaking more or less good Russian. And he launched this idea of federalization of Republic of Moldova. He was the first public figure in Moldova who proposed it.
Before the Kremlin did.
Yeah. On behalf of himself. He didn't officially represent US or OSCE. It was his own proposal. We have to solve Transnistrian problem throughout federalization. And
notably, in the very same year that Dieter Boden, a German diplomat, tried the same with Georgia and Abkhazia on behalf of the United Nations.
In that period of time, not only Americans, but German politicians were very active to impose to us federalization.
And William Hill made use of his half-decent Russian, didn't he, to insult you?
It was so funny when I published several articles against so-called federalization, and some journalists asked Mr. William Hill, the chief of OSCE office in Moldova, what is your reaction on Iurie Roșca's attitude and position and articles and public speeches against federalization? And he used to say in Russian, "E to chepuha." It was so funny.
That means that's a lot of nonsense.
Yeah, it's a sort of nonsense. Yeah, "E to chepuha." And from time to time, this small city, Chisinau, I met him, and he permanently tried to avoid me like this. But Mr. Hill.
In a town as small as Chisinau, you can't avoid bumping into your nemesis.
And it was funny because I was permanently in the central area, parliament and my party and so on, and he circulated in the same area, and he tried permanently to avoid to have this eyes contact with me. I was very close friend with many members of parliament from Germany, from CDU party, Christian Democratic Union Party.
These are MEPs in Strasbourg and Brussels.
MEPs and MP also.
From the Bundestag.
In that period of time, not only Americans, but Germans too. I am talking about 2001, 2002, when Western diplomats tried to impose so-called federalization. And from German parliament came to Republic of Moldova Claudia Nolte. Claudia Nolte used to be, I think in that period of time, the chief of Friendship Committee, Germany, Republic of Moldova. And she sent to me, I knew her from Brussels, from Germany, from other international meetings of Christian Democrats. She organized a meeting with the separatist leaders and with the MPs from Chisinau, official MPs and party leaders, to explain how functions federal fiscal budget, how efficient it is, how good it is. And I didn't participate on this meeting. And she came without calling me to my office.
Just walked in?
Yeah, in a very arrogant manner, and said, "Iurie, hello, why you was absent today in my conference?" And I said, "Hey, Claudia, shut up, take a seat, be calm. Maybe federation is functional for your country and for US, but for this little piece of land, this kind of federation with only two subjects, Republic of Moldova plus the second or the first subject, Russian army, doesn't work."
What you're pointing out here is that on paper, the other federal subject would have been the Republic of Transnistria, and in practice it would have been the Russian army.
Claudia Nolte was shocked, and the same reaction had this guy from State Department, Steve Pfeiffer. Steve Pfeiffer used to be a very important dignitary in State Department, and I came to State Department.
He was the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for your part of the world at that point.
In that period. And he asked me the same question, "Iurie, how you could be against federation? We, US, are federation, and it is so well. Maybe for you it is acceptable. For me, no, because our constitution has this clear provision. We are a unitary state, we are a small piece of land, and we cannot federalize ourselves with Russian army. And he reacted like this. Very stupid manner. And this manner in State Department, one is talking, another is
Taking notes.
taking notes about your body language.
And this would have been the desk officer, Mark Taplin, for your country?
Mark Taplin was head of desk Ukraine, Belarus, and Moldova. And I was in his office twice or three times, and asked every single year. I asked him, Mark, tell me please, how about your dialogue with the Russians? They are ready to withdraw their military presence. Iurie, it is very serious diplomatic and strategic problem. I understand, but I am here to see if you are able to do it. If not, we have to change our diplomatic insistence and to have a dialogue only with Russians, because you cannot solve it. Yeah, but in any case, it was not so pleasant, but it happens permanently with small and not so important geopolitical states like Republic of Moldova, great actors.
They come and say, why can't you be like America? Why can't you be like Russia?
Yeah. And they like you, Russians or Americans, only if you are obsessed to become Russian or American.
Or European.
Or European. And if we are trying to explain that we are not against you, we are a little different, and that's it. We have to have very good and excellent partnership and so on, but we cannot. No.
Shakespeare has the famous line that the English will not apologize for wearing their own noses, that is, being themselves. And this is what you were saying too. But in those days, your English wasn't as excellent as now. So when these people from the State Department came over to browbeat you, in Taplin's case, literally to throw themselves forward and breathe heavily.
No, it was Pfeiffer.
Pfeiffer's case.
Pfeiffer, and he is a tall guy like this, and he came so closely. It wasn't so polite because we have a manner to discuss in diplomatic manner. Yeah.
So whenever this happened, you were using an interpreter. In this case, I think it was Fredo Arias King.
Yeah, from Mexico City. I understood English, but I was not capable, able to talk good English. That's why Fredo Arias King, who is...
he was an advisor to President Vicente Fox.
Yeah, he was an advisor for foreign affairs of candidate Vicente Fox, former president of Mexico. And he helped me to come to Washington 2 or 3 times. He paid for it, because he is a member of very rich Mexican family, and he liked me because he came several times in Chisinau and participated in our summer universities and different party activities. And for him it was so funny that I am confronting a little politician for a little piece of land. He is confronting this American hegemon.
Wherever you are, Strasbourg, Foggy Bottom, the Kremlin, all you're doing is saying, don't tell me to shut up. All you're doing is saying, you have no right to say, I have 1 minute of talking time. Or you're saying, we're in this house now, the parliament, it has its own rules. You're only insisting that you receive equal and respectful treatment, but they can't cope with it.
You know, it is not about my character, maybe partially, but I tried to protect our national interests of my small country, Republic of Moldova, in our dialogue, very difficult dialogue, and from time to time conflicts and diplomatic confrontations with Russia or with the United States and the European Union. And it was unusual, I could say, in our country. And between two forces, it wasn't so easy to resist. I resisted during many, many years, but one day it was a successful operation for them to eliminate me from political landscape, yeah. But I don't regret, because my period finished. Why? Because why we were successful? Many people asking me, Iurie, why you was able and your colleagues to be 5 times in parliament. I was only 4, but our first president was in first parliament after the independence. And my answer is very, very simple. We were successful because communist system was destroyed, disappeared, but capitalistic system was in an incipient period. When plutocracy became a normality here, and when money civilization, mammonocracy, became a normal state of reality here in Moldova, people like myself, not only in Moldova, but in all communist country, were eliminated from political leadership.
But just before this elimination from politics in 2009, you had the opportunity to confront the successor of the said William Hill, the next head of the OSCE mission to Moldova, another State Department man.
Yeah.
This one is Philip Rendler.
Exactly.
And you had to tell him that his predecessor hadn't quite got the message.
Yeah. It was an not so pleasant meeting for him, because he came to my party office with one young lady from Poland. And in that period I was very nervous, because it was so difficult to reject this insistence to federalize our country, on behalf of OSCE, Americans and Germans especially. And I started our dialogue in this way. Do you know who I am? Yeah, you are a party leader and member of parliament. No. I am able to organize a huge mass protest every single day, like this. Only myself and my team.
And you weren't shooting the breeze. You had done this several times.
And I said to him, I apologize for this direct style, but don't waste your time with me. Just, you have to keep in mind one request. Don't try to solve Transnistrian problem without my participation. It could be very problematic with you, because I will come to your office with my people and I will ask you why you are trying to solve Transnistrian problem without parliament, without public debates and so on. And this young lady was so shocked. He noted everything, and she was deputy, I think, in that period. And I asked him, do you understand me? And he said, yes, I understand you. Thank you very much. Our meeting could be closed now. Thank you for your visit. Oh, it was a huge scandal. Who is Iurie Roșca? Who is so arrogant? No, I wasn't arrogant. I just was determined to explain to them that we have our own national interests. You can imagine, small country with its own national interests.
And this Transnistrian conflict is real and personal to you, because am I correct that you commanded troops in 1993 in the south of your country, in Cahul?
No. It was a confusion in newspapers in that period of time. On the contrary, in 1990, during the fall period, the autumn, it was a special operation to provoke central authorities to accept military confrontation with separatist region at that period of time, Gagauz regions, southern part of Moldova, Turkish population.
These are other separatists in the south, not the Transnistrian, pro-Russian.
Not the Transnistrian, but now this question was solved in 1994. We adopted a special law. I voted against. It is another story. But in that period of time, Kremlin tried to provoke conflicts just to have a pretext to introduce their troops in Bessarabian part of Moldova, because Transnistria region is in another part of Dniester River. And I tried to stop the violence, because our government, our former Prime Minister, I was surprised, launched an official statement and said all real patriots have to become volunteers to finish with separatist region of Gagauzia. But how? Like this? We have to kill Gagauz?
This would have been a jihad because these
No,
are
no, no.
Muslim Turks in the south.
I don't know if in that period of time our prime minister was manipulated, maybe, but it was a great political mistake. And I came to Cahul. This is the most important town in southern part of Moldova, next to Gagauzian region. And I concentrated about 2 or maybe 2,500 militants, patriots. And during 1 week, I explained to them why we have not to apply violence against our Gagauzian citizens. And you know, after more than 20 years, I discovered that Gagauzian leaders had the same attitude. Among them, exactly like among us, were infiltrated provocators to determine a violent confrontation between the Moldovans and Gagauzians. And I was really shocked that those Gagauzian leaders, who were very politically motivated, they fought in their style for their collective identity. Yeah, maybe not in legal way, but we can understand it now.
But in a moral way.
Yeah, and I am very happy that in 1990, when I was very young, I understood the real meaning of this so-called confrontation between Moldovans and Gagauzians, and I stopped it with my people, with my team, yeah? And Kremlin failed this moment to provoke a military confrontation like it was successful in 1992, after 2 years later with Transnistrian region.
Or on the western side, we can say that Samuel Huntington and his disciples did not manage to make your country another theatre of their clash of civilizations.
Exactly.
They were not able to write up that Muslims and Christians were fighting holy wars in that case.
But in 1992, it was for Kremlin a very successful operation to provoke this military conflict, just to have a pretext, a legal official pretext to keep their army in our territory.
And the year after you left politics, so 2010, the US Embassy started browbeating you also, didn't it? We must have an anti-discrimination law in Moldova. You must get with the program.
Yeah. After 2009, when Communist Party with Vladimir Voronin, leader of this party and president, who won once again for the third time the elections, so-called pro-Western parties, which were, like today, like current governance, direct product of Western networks, NGOs and mass media and so on, they committed a violent coup d'etat at 7th of April in 2009, and they became rulers. Like in Georgia or in Ukraine, the same story. But here was violently enough. And during 2 mandates of communist Voronin, Europeans and Americans wasn't able to promote during communist period, or not communist, but period of communist governance here in Moldova. Western, collective West wasn't able to promote so-called anti-discriminatory law, so to legalize LGBT movement and so on. Why? Voronin explained me, former president of Republic of Moldova. I am a Christian believer. Very strange situation, communist Christian believer, and his mother used to be very strong Christian believer also. And he stopped it, blocked it. And after him came pro-European parties, alliance, and they started to talk openly about this intention to adopt this project of law. And some commissioners came to Chisinau, I forget the name of this guy from Slovenia. In my book, The Fall from USSR to EU, I'm quoting with him in several articles. who came here several times to insist to promote this law. And I was against. I organized a press conference. So it was probably in 2009 or 10 when I received this call from American embassy, from mobile to mobile, because in that period of time I used to work as diplomat here. One very old friend of mine, one lady, she's name is Daria Fein. She used to be in Soviet perestroika period in Moscow American diplomat, and now she became in that period a chief of Department for Politics and Economy and in the American Embassy in Chisinau. Iurie, hello, how are you doing? Excellent, thank you. Can I visit you? And I asked, when? Just now. Daria, you are a diplomat. You cannot say just now. We have to program it. We have to check our agenda. Iurie, come on, we have to have a meeting quickly. She came to my office, in my party office, and she remained there for 3 hours. She smoked a lot. I smoked at that period of time also.
And you've told me this story before, off camera, that she was so nervous that she was chain smoking. I understand Bruce Jackson had the same habit, always Kent cigarettes, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he could knock back 40 cans of beer?
Yeah, Heineken, only Heineken. And Bruce used to smoke Kent Lights, but Daria Fein I don't remember. But she was so insistent that I have to renounce to my attitude against anti-discriminatory, so-called anti-discriminatory law. It meant legalization of sexual perversions, of sodomy. And I said, Daria, sorry, but I cannot accept your... But it is an official American politics.
You must do it in Moldova because American policy says so.
Yeah.
She's a rabbi's daughter as well.
Yeah, she is Daria Fein. Her origins is from Russia, I think, and she is a daughter of a rabbi. I have not any problems with this background, but she was so disappointed with with my attitude, and she really was very friendly with me, because during Soviet period I was so loud hooligan here from anti-communist movement. They admired me and applauded me, and now they were determined to abandon the communication and cooperation with me. And after 2 years, I think, this law was adopted, but in castrated form, not as initially so dangerous, but anyhow they accepted this expression, sexual minority. It doesn't exist in our constitution. We are enumerating all kind of minorities, national, linguistical, and religious, and so on. But sexual minority is an aberration. It's an abnormal formula. But anyhow, our pro-Western governances during now 14 years always are in favor of sodomite, of LGBT movement, and so on.
Iurie Roșca, we conclude this interview by explaining the timing of it. I've come to Moldova now because this may be my last chance for a long while to speak to you. You're facing criminal charges which could land you in jail for 7 years.
Yeah.
With all that entails in a country like this, forced injection with COVID products and other things that you have stood very firm against. The charge that's dangling over your head is peddling influence. How have they managed to stick that on you?
You know, this criminal case is not the first. I don't know how many. It was so frequently during the last 35 years. I was many times invited to prosecutor office and had many criminal prosecution cases. But I avoided to be imprisoned because every single time it was about politics. And now it is about my political position. This case was officially launched against me 5 years ago. 5 years and a half now. Absolutely without any arguments, without any proofs and so on. And during December month now this year, we will have 3 sessions of first level in court. And I think this judge, this lady, is very correct and good professional and positive person, because meantime our governance was changed twice. My judge is another one. My prosecutor, who is representing state interests in this criminal case, is another person, one young lady. But I know how effective could be our regime to constrain them to condemn me for prison. It is a real danger, but some friends of mine suggested me, you have to escape this destiny and to go abroad in Russia or in Romania or in Western countries. So they said, no, I will remain here, because if I will accept to finish my life abroad, it means I will compromise all my life and my struggle and my fight for values, and it is not for me. I am ready. It is. I don't want to be imprisoned, but I am ready for it. I prepared my books. I think I will be able to have paper and the capacity to write, and it is enough for me. Maybe I will avoid it, but the problem is not first of all the dangerous. The problem is not our governance. We have in Moldova puppet governance, which is controlled by Americans. I don't know if Western partners of Moldova could influence the final decision in this case, and to have more chances to survive, to avoid this imprisonment. It means to be not so loud, to stop my meta-political now, my videos, my articles, my books, my public activity, my Chisinau Forum initiative.
You began the Chisinau Forum just months before the charges were first opened against you.
Yeah, but I cannot stop it, because I cannot live without it. And I am very I'm very interested to see how they will present a possible condemnation. It is. I am without any protection, political or from some political groups or groups of interest here or abroad, and maybe it is very important for me to remain an independent person.
Iurie, perhaps that will be your legacy, that you were the only man in your country, in your political generation, who was not an oligarch or who did not have a so-called krisha, a protector on top of you, other than the God in whom you trust. We wish you all the best with facing off these charges, and I trust in God's will that I'll be able to speak to you as a free man. But if not, I wish you all the strength and faith and courage you need in prison.
Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you very much. God bless you too.